welcome to the Audible, the quarterback analysis podcast. I'm Big Italy 42 here talking about some top plays courtesy of at Zach's Got Moxie on Twitter. His first play here, elite cash game play, no surprise here. Best quarterback in football this season, Tom Brady for the New England Patriots. $9,400 on FanDuel, $88,000 on DraftKings. Vegas team total still close to 30 points despite the fact that Julian Edelman is down. Gronkowski doubtful to play this week. Deion Lewis gone. And Tom Brady just continues to get it done no matter what. 327 yards per game, 28 touchdown passes. Facing an Eagles team that is just god-awful. They have allowed 15 touchdown passes in the last 4 weeks. 5 touchdown passes to each of the last 2 quarterbacks they've faced. And, if those guys can do it with the receiving core they have, then Tom Brady can do it with anyone. We've seen Tom Brady do more with less. And if you're paying up a quarterback, this one's pretty simple. You just go ahead and lock in Tom Brady because he just finds a way to get it done, even with issues due to injuries and things like that. And Vegas, obviously, a believer in him as well with that high total. The week of Cam Newton is finally here. It's kind of been here most of the season, but great matchup for him this week. Facing off against the Saints, $9,000 on FanDuel, $74 on DraftKings. Vegas team total over 28 points here. We've got Cam Newton with at least 16 fantasy points in every game since week 1. 427 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns. Saints defense, you know the drill by now. They're just god-awful. Bottom 3 against the pass and the run. They are next to last in total yards allowed per game, 419. Last in points allowed per game, 30.8. It doesn't matter how Newton gets it done. You got to imagine if they get down to the goal line, he's going to get some goal line carries, as he does. He likes to call his own number down there, but also likes to run between the 20s. And he's another guy who has had himself a fine season without a lot of great targets here. And consistent running game. Jonathan Stewart's been adequate this season. He's been solid. So definitely takes a little bit of the pressure off of Cam Newton in the passing game. But Saints, now they're back at home. Imagine they should be able to at least score some points this week, despite the fact that it's a good Panthers defense. So you almost hope that they do if you're rostering Cam Newton. You want this game to stay close and have him throwing up until the fourth quarter there. Value cash game play, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Fitzmagic shaves his beard, or trims his beard, I should say, and then had a phenomenal game the next week. 7,500 on FanDuel, 52 on DraftKings. Vegas team total just under 24 points here. And at least 14 fantasy points in all but one game this year. And the only one he did not score 14, he left with an injury. Last 4 weeks, averaging 20.65 fantasy points with 958 yards passing and 9 touchdowns. He also has rushed for 63 yards and a score throughout those games. So certainly not counting on those numbers, but he's shown the ability to pull it down and run. And he's got a great matchup here against the Giants. Giants allowing the most passing yards per game at 309 yards, 25 more yards per game than any other team. Obviously, the Drew Brees game certainly helped that, but they've been consistently bad all season there. Bottom 3rd in touchdown passes allowed, 21. And if it's not Brady or Newton, then Zach is a big fan of Fitzpatrick, and it's hard to argue with that. You got guys like Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker, tremendously consistent, and a nice running game with Chris Ivory. So this is definitely a guy you need to keep on your radar. Blake Bortle's a guy who, as far as a real-life quarterback, not all that efficient, but he's a great fantasy quarterback. And coming in at 7,400 on FanDuel, 6,000 on DraftKings. Vegas team total low, as it always is, seemingly, with the Jags, 20.3 points. And last week, the play calling was just atrocious. Bortles made a couple terrible decisions, throwing the ball past the line of scrimmage. But if you're looking from a DFS perspective, 268 passing yards per game, 22 total scores, at least 2 touchdown passes in 6 of the last 7 games. Facing the Titans, who have only allowed 224 passing yards a game, but 20 touchdowns through the air. Jags just continue to give up on the run, and especially in the red zone, which means Bortles is going to be throwing. Only issue with him being that it looks like Allen Hurns doubtful for this game, but Julius Thomas is healthy. He emerged with a big game last week. You still got Allen Robinson. You have TJ Yeldon you can throw to in the passing game. It started out that way last week, kind of got away from it, but plenty of weapons in this offense for Blake Bortles to still have a nice game, despite Allen Hurns unlikely to play. Another great GPP play, the guy that we saw on all the winning GPP rosters last week, Russell Wilson, 7,800 on FanDuel, 56 on DraftKings. Vegas team total just over 21. But last 2 games, Russell Wilson with 8 touchdown passes and 302.5 passing yards a game. Obviously, he has the ability to tuck it and run as well. behind only Cam Newton in rushing yards with 399 yards on the season. Vikings defense are solid, and they're allowing the second fewest points per game in the NFL at 17.6. But through the air, they have shown some susceptibility with 2 of their last 3 opponents scoring at least 17 fantasy points as far as quarterbacks go. And will likely be without Harrison Smith once again here, which means more opportunities for Wilson down the field. Obviously, Jimmy Graham gone now, but plenty of good, not great receivers for Seattle that have really stepped up when he's needed them to. And Wilson, as you know, able to score points with his legs there as well. Matt Stafford, a guy who, under the new regime with Jim Bob Cooter, has finally looked like the old Matt Stafford, the good quarterback that we had seen in the past. And we'll see if he can keep it going this week. 7,500 on FanDuel, 61 on DraftKings, Vegas team total 22. And past 4 home games, averaging 320 passing yards, 2.75 touchdowns, 27 fantasy points. Facing a Green Bay Packers defense that the Lions already beat this team once. Packers 18th in passing yards allowed per game, 16th in fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks, 16.4, depending on what site you're looking at. And that's painfully average for the Packers, and they have really struggled on the road. Past 3 road games, they're allowing, 311 yards passing per game and 4 touchdown passes. Stafford has played much better at home. Packers have not played well away from home, and Stafford's a nice GPP to play this week. Value GPP option, he's got Ryan Tannehill here for the Miami Dolphins, 7,300 on FanDuel, 5,300 on DraftKings. Vegas team total just shy of 24 points. And this is a team playing the Ravens, so that means Ryan Tannehill is in play. And Ravens have allowed second most fantasy points a game to quarterbacks at 19.3, 23rd in touchdown passes allowed, 24th in passing yards allowed. Tannehill's been a roller coaster, which is why he is a perfect GPP play here. And the Ravens are a good matchup, but the Dolphins tremendously inconsistent here. Tannehill certainly not a cash game option, as Zach mentions here, but nice guy to throw in your GPPs that'll be nice and low owned for this week. Looking down below him, next up we have Jay Cutler, $7,000 on FanDuel, 51 on DraftKings, still right by the minimum there, 25-point team total. And it's a 49ers secondary that is not very good. Jay Cutler has Alshon Jeffrey, of course. He's healthy. He wasn't early in the season. Cutler has not been great over the past couple weeks, but overall the season has actually been pretty good. And facing the 49ers defense that played well last week, but still not a good defensive unit. 271 passing yards, 17 fantasy points to Carson Palmer last week. Obviously some of those coming on a rushing touchdown, but this is still a team that's 28th in passing yards allowed per game, 277, 17 touchdown passes. As Zach mentions here, FanDuel price you don't love, but you do like the DraftKings price just over site minimum. And Cutler has certainly shown some upside, and he's actually been a pretty good quarterback this year, quietly, but still one of those guys that not a lot of people target. So that'll wrap things up for this week. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out the rest of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.